Get your blankets because it's time for Bible Blanket Monday. The Ten Commandments. In the 3rd month after the children of Israel had left Egypt, they came into the desert of Sinai. They pitched their tents in the wilderness and camped there before the mountain. Let's stop here for a moment. I want you to think back to the beginning of the year when we talked about the 7 covenants of the Bible. Remember, the first covenant was the covenant God made at creation with Adam. The second covenant was the renewal of that covenant with Noah after the flood. The third covenant was the covenant with Abraham. This is the 4th covenant, the covenant God made with the people through Moses at Mount Sinai. Remember, these covenants are God's way of bringing us back into his family after the fall. Back to the story. Moses came down and called for the elders of the people and laid before them all the words of the Lord. And the people answered together and said, "All that the Lord has spoken, we will do." Moses went up to talk to the Lord, and God called to him from the mountain, saying, "Say to the children of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, if you will obey my voice and keep your agreement with me, then you shall be a special treasure to me, more than any other people. You shall be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you shall speak to the children of Israel." Let's stop for a minute and talk about what's happening here, because this covenant is a little bit different from the covenants we've seen before. This covenant is a conditional covenant. That means there are some conditions placed upon the people. They need to keep God's commandments. God's commandments are like family rules. If they're going to be part of God's family, they have to keep the family rules. God said, "If you keep my covenant, you will be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." This tells us that God's plan was to fulfill the promises he made to Abraham. The first promise was that Abraham's descendants would be a great nation. And we hear that in God's words, "You will be a holy nation." The second promise to Abraham was that that nation would someday be a kingdom. We hear that in God's promise that they would be a kingdom of priests. Finally, God promised to Abraham that through his descendants, blessing would come to all the nations of the earth. This one is a little harder to see, but God is promising the people that if they keep his covenant, he will make them a kingdom of priests. One of the jobs of priests is to bless people. So if they keep the covenant and become a kingdom of priests, through them, blessing would come to the whole world. So God is planning through this covenant to keep his promises, to make the Israelites part of his family, and through them to increase his family to the whole world. Now, back to the story. Then Moses told the Lord what the people had said. And God was pleased and spoke to Moses, saying, "Lo, I will come to you in a thick cloud, so that the people may hear when I speak to you, and believe you forever. Now go to the people and bless them today and tomorrow. Have them wash their clothes and be ready for the 3rd day. For the 3rd day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. You shall set bounds for the people and warn them to take care not to go up on the mountain or touch the side of it, for whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. Anyone who does touch it shall be stoned or shot, whether it be beast or man. When the trumpet sounds a long blast, they shall come up to the mountain." Moses went down from the mountain to the people And he blessed them, and they washed their clothes, and he said to them, "Be ready for the third day." When the third day came, in the morning there was thunder and lightning, and a thick cloud lay upon the mountain. Then the voice of a trumpet sounded so loud that all the people in the camp trembled. And Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke, because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke rose up like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled and shook. When the voice of the trumpet sounded long blasts and grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him by a voice. Then the Lord came down upon the top of Mount Sinai, and he called Moses up to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no gods other than me. You shall not make any sculptured image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them nor worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the offspring of those who hate me, and showing mercy to thousands of those that love me and keep my commandments. You shall not use the name of the Lord your God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, you, nor any member of your family and household, nor any person living with you. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in it, and rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the seventh day, and made it holy. Respect your father and your mother, so that your days may be many in the land the Lord your God gives to you. You shall not kill, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not wrongly accuse your neighbor. You shall not envy your neighbor, nor desire to have his wife, his house, his servants, his animals, nor anything that is his. Okay, I cheated a little bit. Actually, Moses hasn't gone up the mountain to get the tablets yet, but I wanted you to see that really cool footage from the 1956 movie The Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston. Next week, we'll talk about the sacrifice that happened at the foot of the mountain to seal the covenant, and then what happened when Moses did go up to the top of Mount Sinai. See you next week for more Blanket Bible Monday.